The emergency alarm screamed across Zenther Medical Station like a dying animal. Dr. Sarah Chun dropped her coffee mug, watching the brown liquid splash across her research notes. Through the massive viewport of the space station, she could see the reason for the chaos. A massive ship drifted toward them, its hull torn open like a metal flower blooming in reverse. Black smoke poured from the wounds in its side, and debris floated around it like deadly confetti. Sarah had seen many damaged vessels in her 5 years at the station, but nothing like this. All medical staff to Emergency Bay 7. The announcement crackled overhead. Priority Alpha situation. All medical staff to Emergency Bay 7 immediately. Sarah grabbed her emergency kit and ran through the curved corridors of the station. Zenthera was home to doctors from 12 different alien species, each bringing their own knowledge of healing. It was supposed to be the best medical facility in this sector of space. When she reached Emergency Bay 7, the scene took her breath away. The other doctors stood in a perfect circle, but they weren't moving to help. They were backing away. In the center of the bay lay the largest creature Sarah had ever seen. It looked like a cross between a dragon and a lion, but bigger than both. Its scales shimmered between deep purple and black, and even lying on its side, it stood taller than Sarah. One of its wings was bent at a terrible angle, and deep gashes ran along its flank. Golden blood pooled beneath it, so much blood that Sarah wondered how it was still alive. But what caught her attention most were its eyes. Even through the pain, they burned with an intelligence that seemed older than stars. This wasn't just an animal. This was something more. Dr. Vextar, the head of emergency medicine, stood closest to the creature. His 6 arms gestured frantically as he spoke to the other doctors. Sarah had never seen the usually calm Zephyrian look so disturbed. "What's the situation?" Sarah asked, pushing through the crowd of medical staff. Dr. Vextar's large black eyes turned to her. "It's an apex beast, Dr. Chun. A fully grown Xerian apex. We cannot treat it." Sarah stared at him. "Cannot? Or will not?" "The same thing," said Dr. Moralin, the Velithian surgeon. Her blue skin had turned pale, almost white. "Apex beasts are the ultimate predators of their home worlds. They're designed to hunt and kill everything else. Their bodies are walking weapons." "But it's injured," Sarah said, looking at the creature's labored breathing. "It needs help." "Help!" Dr. Kelthros laughed, but there was no humor in it. The Andromedan's crystalline body chimed softly as he shook his head. "That thing could kill half this station, even in its current state. Look at its claws." Sarah did look. Each claw was longer than her forearm and looked sharp enough to cut through steel. But she also noticed how they trembled with each painful breath the creature took. "My people have legends about these beasts," continued Dr. Kelthros. "They say one apex beast once destroyed an entire colony of 10,000 beings. They feel no mercy, show no weakness, accept no surrender." "Those are just stories," Sarah protested. "Are they?" Dr. Vextar moved closer to Sarah, his voice dropping to a whisper. 300 years ago, my great-grandfather was a military medic during the Xerian border wars. He told me about seeing these creatures in battle. They would tear through enemy lines like they were made of paper. And when they were wounded, they would turn on anyone who came close, even those trying to help. Sarah watched the creature's chest rise and fall with obvious difficulty. "But this one isn't attacking anyone. It's just lying there." "Because it's too weak right now," said Dr. Morland. "But the moment we touch it, the moment it feels threatened, those instincts will kick in. It will try to kill us all. We've already sent a message to the Galactic Wildlife Authority," Dr. Vextar added. "They're sending a specialized team with heavy sedation equipment. They should be here in 18 hours. 18 hours? Sarah looked at the growing pool of golden blood. "It'll be dead in 6. "Then it dies," Dr. Kelthros said simply. "Better that than us." Sarah couldn't believe what she was hearing. These were doctors, healers who had sworn to preserve life. Yet here they stood, arguing about why they should let a living being die because they were afraid. She knelt down beside her emergency kit and began pulling out supplies. Well, I'm not going to stand here and watch it die. Dr. Chun, Dr. Vexstar's voice carried a warning tone. I am ordering you to step away from that creature. You are endangering yourself and everyone in this bay. Sarah looked up at him, then around at the other doctors. Fear filled their eyes, but she also saw something else. Relief. They were relieved that someone else was making this choice, so they didn't have to live with the guilt of watching a sentient being die. With respect, Dr. Vextar, I took an oath when I became a doctor. That oath didn't come with a list of exceptions. She turned back to the creature and was startled to find its eyes focused on her. Up close, they were even more remarkable. They shifted between gold and green like earthly autumn leaves, and they held an expression she recognized. The creature was afraid. It's okay, she whispered, though she had no idea if it could understand her. I'm going to try to help you. The creature's eyes followed her movements as she examined the wounds. The gashes along its flank were deep, but clean, probably from some kind of energy weapon. The wing injury looked more serious. Bones were definitely broken, but it was the internal bleeding that worried her most. The creature's breathing was becoming more shallow, and its skin was starting to lose its shimmer. Sarah had seen enough trauma cases to know the signs of someone bleeding out. I need blood coagulant, type 7 bandages, and a bone fusion unit, she called over her shoulder. Silence. Did you hear me? I need supplies. Dr. Chun, Dr. Vextar said slowly, we cannot assist you in this. If you insist on this course of action, you do so alone. Sarah felt a flash of anger, but pushed it down. She had supplies in her emergency kit, enough for basic treatment at least. She began cleaning the wounds, working as gently as she could. The creature tensed when she first touched it, and Sarah heard several doctors gasp and step back. But after a moment, the creature seemed to understand what she was doing. Its muscles relaxed slightly. That's it, Sarah murmured. I'm trying to help. As she worked, she became aware that the creature was making a sound. At first, she thought it might be growling, but as she listened more carefully, she realized it was something else entirely. The sound was low and rhythmic, almost like, is it purring? She asked aloud. Dr. Vextar moved slightly closer, his scientific curiosity overcoming his fear for a moment. Zirions don't purr. They're not capable of. He stopped speaking as the sound grew slightly louder. It definitely sounded like purring. Impossible brigdo. Apex beasts don't show affection. They don't bond with other species. They certainly don't purr at them. But the creature was clearly relaxing under Sarah's touch. Its breathing became less labored, and the trembling in its claws stopped. Sarah finished bandaging the smaller wounds and moved to examine the broken wing. The bones would need to be reset, and that was going to hurt. She hesitated, knowing that pain might trigger the creature's defensive instincts. I'm sorry, she told it. This is going to be painful, but I have to fix your wing or you'll never fly again. The creature's eyes met hers, and Sarah could have sworn she saw understanding in them. It lowered its head slightly, as if giving her permission. She began working on the wing, and the creature did cry out in pain. But instead of attacking, it pressed its head against the floor and endured it. The purring sound never stopped. The other doctors watched in amazement as Sarah realigned the broken bones and applied a healing field generator. Throughout the entire procedure, the apex beast remained perfectly still except for the occasional whimper of pain. This is unprecedented, Dr. Kelthros whispered to Dr. Vextar. Everything we know about these creatures says this should be impossible. Perhaps everything we know is wrong. Dr. Vextar replied quietly. Sarah was so focused on her work that she didn't notice the change in the room until she heard someone gasp. She looked up to see that 3 more doctors had moved closer. Dr. Elan, the Centaurian pediatrician, was holding a container of the specialized blood coagulant Sarah had asked for earlier. I thought you might need this, Dr. Elan said softly. Sarah smiled and accepted the container. Thank you. As she applied the coagulant to the worst of the internal wounds, more doctors began to inch closer. First Dr. Senna with better bandages, Then Dr. Thalik with pain medication that would be safe for the creature's biology. But Dr. Vextar and several others still maintained their distance, watching with a mixture of fascination and fear. Sarah worked for 3 hours straight. By the time she finished, the creature's breathing had stabilized, the bleeding had stopped, and its color was returning to normal. It was still badly hurt, but it was no longer dying. She sat back on her heels, exhausted but satisfied. The creature lifted its massive head and looked at her. Then, to everyone's amazement, it did something that made Dr. Kelthros drop his scanner. The apex beast touched its snout gently to Sarah's hand. The gesture was unmistakably one of gratitude. Impossible, docteur, quelle troublette. They said these creatures were incapable of gratitude. Sarah looked up at the circle of doctors around her. Some had helped, some had watched, but all of them had just witnessed something that challenged everything they thought they knew. Maybe, she said quietly, we've been wrong about a lot of things. The creature's eyes drifted closed, and its breathing deepened into what looked like natural sleep rather than unconsciousness for blood loss. For the first time since it had arrived, the emergency bay was peaceful. But Sarah knew this was just the beginning. The creature would need days or weeks of recovery time, and sooner or later it would wake up fully healed and fully capable. Would it still remember the human doctor who had helped it? Or would its predatory instincts return? As if sensing her thoughts, the creature's eyes opened one more time and met hers. In that gaze, Sarah saw something that gave her hope. She saw recognition, intelligence, and something that might have been friendship. Rest now, she whispered. We'll figure out what comes next tomorrow. The creature's eyes closed again, and its purring grew softer until it faded into the quiet sounds of medical equipment. Around the bay, doctors began to disperse, returning to their normal duties, but carrying with them the memory of what they had witnessed. Dr. Vextar was the last to leave. He paused beside Sarah, who was still sitting next to the sleeping creature. You did something remarkable today, Dr. Chun, he said quietly. But you also did something dangerous. I hope you understand that. Sarah nodded. I understand the risk. But I also understand that sometimes taking no action is the most dangerous choice of all. Dr. Vextar considered this. The creature will need constant monitoring. And when it wakes up, we'll see what happens, Sarah finished. But at least it will wake up. As the head of emergency medicine left, Sarah remained beside the sleeping apex beast. She had made her choice, and now she would have to live with the consequences. Whatever came next, she'd save a life today. In her book, that was worth any risk. Sarah woke up to the sound of alarms blaring through the medical bay. She had fallen asleep in the chair beside the apex beast's recovery bed, her hand resting on her scanner. For a moment, she was confused about why emergency lights were flashing red across the ceiling. Then, she saw the empty bed where her patient should have been. Security alert, level 5, the station's computer announced. Unknown entity loose in Section 7. All personnel evacuate immediately. This is not a drill. Sarah's heart pounded as she grabbed her scanner and rushed into the corridor. Medical staff and researchers were running past her, heading for the emergency evacuation pods. Dr. Vextar appeared around the corner, his 6 arms waving frantically. Dr. Chun, thank the stars you're safe. The creature is awake and moving through the station. Security is trying to contain it, but is it attacking anyone? Sarah interrupted. Dr. Vextar paused, looking confused by the question. Well, no, not exactly, but it's a fully grown apex beast roaming free through a civilian station. The potential for, where is it now? Section 7, near the Botanical Gardens. But, Sarah, you cannot be thinking of. Sarah was already running towards Section 7. Behind her, she could hear Dr. Vextar calling for security to stop her, but she didn't slow down. If the creature wasn't actively attacking people, then there had to be a reason it was moving through the station. And she had a terrible feeling she knew what that reason was. When she reached Section 7, she found chaos. Security officers in powered armor were trying to corner the apex beast using energy nets and stun weapons. The creature was backed against the wall of the botanical garden, its injured wing held protectively against its body. But what struck Sarah most was the expression in the creature's eyes. It wasn't rage or bloodlust. It was fear and confusion. "Hold your fire," Sarah shouted, pushing past the security perimeter. Commander Raxic, the station's head of security, spun around to face her. The Thanagarian's feathers were bristled with anger. "Dr. Chun, get back behind the safety line immediately. This creature is extremely dangerous." "It's scared," Sarah said, not moving. "Look at it. Really look. It's not attacking anyone. It's defending itself." "It broke out of medical containment," Commander Raxic replied. "It could kill dozens of people. But it hasn't hurt anyone, has it?" Sarah stepped closer to the creature. "Have there been any injuries? Any attacks?" Commander Raxic's silence was answer enough. Sarah continued moving toward the apex beast, ignoring the shouts of protest behind her. The creature saw her approaching, and something remarkable happened. Its defensive posture relaxed slightly, and the low rumbling sound that had been coming from its throat changed to the same purring she had heard the day before. "It recognizes me," Sarah said over her shoulder. "It remembers that I helped it." She was close enough now to see that the creature had torn away most of its bandages. The wounds underneath were healing well, but they were still tender. Moving around the station must have been painful. "Why did you leave the medical bay?" Sarah asked softly, as if the creature could understand her. "What were you looking for?" The apex beast turned its great head toward the botanical garden, and Sarah followed its gaze. Through the transparent walls, she could see earth plants growing alongside flora from dozens of other worlds. The garden was a riot of colors and shapes, a living museum of biological diversity. Understanding hit her like a physical blow. "You're homesick, aren't you?" The creature made a soft sound that was almost like a whimper. It pressed its snout against the transparent wall of the botanical garden, staring at the plants inside. "The gardens remind you of home," Sarah said. "That's why you came here." Commander Raxic moved up behind her, his voice tense. "Dr. Chun, please step away from the creature. We need to sedate it and return it to containment." "No," Sarah said firmly. "It's not a prisoner. It's a patient. It's a dangerous predator that hasn't hurt anyone," Sarah interrupted. "Commander, how many people has it encountered since it left the medical bay?" Commander Raxic checked his scanner. Initial reports indicate it passed 17 individuals in the corridors. "And how many of those people were injured?" Another pause. "None. But that doesn't mean... It means this creature isn't the mindless killer you think it is." Sarah turned to face the assembled security team. It had dozens of chances to attack people, and it chose not to. Instead, it came here to look at plants that reminded it of home. Dr. Vextar arrived at that moment, slightly out of breath from running. "The situation is under control, Commander. I can sedate the creature and—" "Dr. Vextar," Sarah interrupted. "What would happen if one of us were injured and trapped on an alien world? Wouldn't we want to see something that reminded us of home?" The Zephyrian doctor looked uncertain. "Well, yes, but this is different. This is an apex beast. This is a lonely, hurt being who is far from home and scared," Sarah corrected. "Just like any of us would be." She turned back to the creature, which had been listening to the conversation with obvious intelligence. Its eyes moved from speaker to speaker as they talked, clearly understanding that they were discussing its fate. "I have an idea," Sarah said. "Commander, what if we let it visit the botanical garden? Under control conditions, of course. With security present, but not threatening. Just to see how it reacts." "Absolutely not," Commander Raxic said immediately. "The risk is too great." "The risk of what?" "It's already shown it won't hurt anyone. And keeping it locked up against its will is only going to make it more distressed." Dr. Vextar moved closer, studying the creature with professional interest. Its stress hormones would indeed be elevated from confinement, and psychological distress can significantly impact physical healing. "You're both insane," Commander Raxic declared. I will not authorize allowing a known predator free access to civilian areas of this station. Then, don't, Sarah said. The botanical garden can be evacuated. Just for an hour. Let walk among plants that reminded of home. What's the harm in that? The apex beast seemed to understand they were talking about the garden. It pressed against the transparent wall again, and the sound it made was clearly one of longing. Dr. Vextar surprised everyone by speaking up. Commander, the creature's recovery would be faster if its psychological stress were reduced. And Dr. Chun has demonstrated that it responds positively to her presence. Perhaps a controlled visit. Commander Raxic's feathers flattened against his skull, a sign of deep frustration. If this goes wrong, if anyone gets hurt, it will be on your heads. I'll take responsibility, Sarah said immediately. If something goes wrong, blame me. 20 minutes later, Sarah found herself walking beside an apex beast through the most beautiful garden in the sector. The creature moved slowly, partly due to its injuries, but mostly because it seemed overwhelmed by the abundance of plant life around it. Security officers had taken positions around the garden's perimeter, but they kept their weapons lowered. Dr. Vextar and several other medical staff observed from a safe distance, scanners in hand to monitor the creature's vital signs. The creature stopped beside a cluster of purple flowering vines that spiraled around a crystal support structure. It sniffed delicately at the blossoms, and Sarah was amazed to see what looked like tears forming in its eyes. "These are from your home world, aren't they?" she asked softly. The creature turned to look at her and nodded. Actually nodded. The gesture was unmistakably deliberate communication. Dr. Vextar's voice came through Sarah's communicator. "Dr. Chun, did that creature just nod in response to your question?" "Yes, it did," Sarah replied, not taking her eyes off her patient. "It understands everything we're saying." The creature moved to another section of the garden where earth plants grew. It examined roses and oak saplings with the same careful attention it had given the alien flora. When it came to a patch of sunflowers, it made the purring sound again. "You like those?" Sarah asked. Another nod. Sarah plucked one of the smaller sunflowers and offered it to the creature. It accepted the flower with surprising gentleness, holding it in one massive claw and inhaling its scent. That was when Dr. Morelin's voice crackled through the communicator. "Sarah, you need to see the readings we're getting from the creature." "What kind of readings?" "Brain activity. Its neural patterns they're not what we expected for an apex beast. They're much more complex. More like what we'd see from a highly intelligent sentient being." Sarah looked at the creature, which was still carefully holding the sunflower. "Because that's exactly what it is." She walked closer to the creature and spoke directly to it. "You understand us, don't you? You understand our language." A definite nod. "You're not just an animal. You're a person." The creature's response surprised everyone. It set the sunflower down carefully, then pressed one claw to its chest and made a series of sounds that were clearly deliberate. It was trying to speak. The sounds were deep and rumbling, nothing like human speech, but the rhythm and cadence were unmistakably language. The creature was trying to tell them its name. "Hold on," Sarah said, pulling out her translator device. The universal translator could handle most known languages, but it might struggle with Xerian apex communication. The device hummed for a moment, then a synthetic voice spoke. "I am called Sky, touched by stars." Silence fell over the garden. Everyone stared at the creature who had just introduced itself. "Sky touched by stars," Sarah repeated slowly. "That's your name." Another nod, followed by more sounds. The translator worked again. "Thank you for healing, for kindness." Dr. Vextar's voice came through the communicator, filled with wonder. "This changes everything. If apex beasts are truly sentient, if they have language and culture, then we've been wrong about them for centuries," Sarah finished. "We've been treating people like animals because we were afraid of them." Sky touched by stars moved to another section of the garden and stopped beside a small pool where water plants floated on the surface. It made more sounds. Home is water and sky and growing things. Like this place. You're homesick, Sarah said gently. You want to go home? Yes, but shipbroken. Cannot fly far. Sarah felt a pang of sympathy. The creature had been traveling somewhere when its ship was damaged. Now it was stranded on a space station, far from everything it knew and loved. Where were you going? She asked. When your ship was damaged? Sky touched by stars was quiet for a long moment. Then, it spoke again, and the translator's response made Sarah's heart sink. Going to peace talks. First time many years. To speak for my people. Dr. Vextar's gasp was audible through the communicator. Sarah, did it just say peace talks? I think so. Sarah looked at Sky, touched by stars with new understanding. You're some kind of diplomat, aren't you? You're going to peace negotiations. Yes, important talks between my people and others to stop fighting. When are these talks supposed to happen? Sky touched by stars made a sound of distress. Soon, very soon. If I do not come, talks will fail. Fighting will continue. Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. This wasn't just about treating an injured patient anymore. Sky touched by stars might be the key to ending a war, and it was stranded on their station with no way to reach its destination in time. Commander Raxic, she said into her communicator. We need to talk. Right now. Dr. Chun, the creature has been peaceful so far, but Commander, this creature is a diplomatic envoy on its way to peace talks that could end a war. And if we don't help it get there in time, that war is going to continue. The implications of this revelation would reshape everything they thought they knew about apex beasts and the conflicts that had raged for generations. But first, they had to figure out how to get Sky touched by stars to those peace talks. The creature looked at Sarah with hope in its ancient eyes, and she knew that whatever it took, she was going to help it get home. The emergency conference room had never held such an unusual gathering. Station Commander Thex Lin sat at the head of the table, her Altarian features tense with stress. Around her sat the department heads, security officers, and medical staff. And at the far end of the room, taking up nearly a quarter of the space, lay Sky touched by stars. The apex beast had insisted on attending the meeting, communicating through the universal translator that it needed to explain the situation directly. Sarah sat beside it, still amazed by how much their understanding had changed in just one day. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, Commander Thex Lin said, her voice carefully controlled. You are telling us that our patient is a diplomatic envoy whose presence is required at peace negotiations between multiple worlds. That is correct, Sky touched by stars replied through the translator. My absence will be seen as declaration of continued war. Commander Raxic leaned forward. And these negotiations are taking place where exactly? Nexus, Prime, Neutral, Station, 3 days' journey from here. Dr. Vextar consulted his datapad. Nexus Prime is indeed a diplomatic station, but 3 days' journey would require a fast courier ship, and we don't have anything like that available. The talks begin in 4 days, Sky touched by stars continued. If, Zirian, Council will assume it was killed by enemies. They will resume full military operations. Sarah felt her stomach drop. How long has this war been going on? 200 years. My generation has never known peace. These talks are first chance to end fighting. The room fell silent. The weight of the situation was sinking in for everyone. This wasn't just about helping one injured being anymore. The fate of entire worlds might depend on getting Sky touched by stars to those negotiations. What about your ship? Asked Chief Engineer Dorlin. Can it be repaired? Sky touched by stars made a sound that the translator interpreted as sadness. Ship too damaged. Would take weeks to repair. And I cannot pilot with injured wing. We could assign a pilot, suggested Commander Raxic, if the ship can be made functional. No, Sky touched by stars replied firmly. Zirian ships require biological interface. Only Zirian can pilot. Sarah had an idea forming, but it was so crazy she almost didn't voice it. What if we took you to Nexus Prime ourselves? Commander Thex Lin stared at her. Dr. Chun, this station cannot leave its position. We have critical research ongoing and supply schedules to maintain. Not the whole station. A shuttle. Or better yet, one of our long-range medical transports. Those transports aren't designed for 3-day journeys. Chief Engineer Dorlin protested. They're for emergency evacuations within the same solar system. Dr. Vextar suddenly looked up from his datapad. Actually, the new Type 7 medical transport has extended range capabilities. It was designed for deep space medical emergencies, with some modifications to the life support systems. It could work, Chief Engineer Dorlin admitted reluctantly. But it will be a one-way trip. The fuel requirements for getting there and back would be enormous. Then, we make it a supply run, Sarah suggested. Nexus Prime always needs medical supplies. We deliver our patient, drop off supplies, and refuel there for the return journey. Commander Thex Lin looked skeptical. And who exactly would pilot this mission? Dr. Chen, you're not qualified for deep space navigation. I am, said a voice from the doorway. Everyone turned to see Lieutenant Commander Zura Okafor standing in the entrance. The human pilot had been stationed at Zinthra for 2 years, and her record was spotless. Lieutenant Commander, Commander Thex Lin said with surprise. I didn't realize you were monitoring this meeting. I requested permission to observe, sir. When I heard about the diplomatic situation, I wanted to volunteer my services. Zara stepped into the room, her dark eyes serious. I've made the run to Nexus Prime twice before in escort missions. I know the route, and I'm certified for extended deep space operations. This would be incredibly dangerous, Commander Raxic pointed out. We're talking about transporting a being that every military force in 3 sectors has been trained to consider a deadly threat. If you're stopped by patrols, then I'll explain, Sky touched by stars interjected. I carry diplomatic immunity codes. Any patrol can verify my status. Dr. Vextar was already working on his datapad. I'm running projections on the medical requirements. Sky touched by stars will need continued treatment during the journey, but nothing that can't be handled with portable equipment. I'll go too, Sarah said immediately, as the attending physician, if complications arise during the journey. Dr. Chun, Commander Thex Lin said slowly, you do understand what you're volunteering for? You would be confined in a small space with an apex beast for 3 days, traveling through potentially hostile territory, on a mission that could impact multiple worlds. Sarah looked at Sky touched by stars, whose golden-green eyes met hers with unmistakable gratitude. I understand completely. Sky touched by stars made the purring sound again, then spoke. Dr. Chun saved my life. Now she offers to save my people's future. This is great honor. Commander Thex Lin was quiet for several minutes, weighing the risks and benefits. Finally, she spoke. I need to contact Galactic Command and get authorization for this mission. In the meantime, Chief Engineer Dorlin, I want you to begin preparations on the Type 7 transport. Lieutenant Commander Okafor, start plotting courses and fuel requirements. Dr. Chun, Dr. Vextar, prepare medical supplies and equipment. What about security? Commander Raxic asked. Shouldn't we send armed escorts? Sky touched by stars responded before anyone else could. No weapons. Peace mission must show trust. Weapons would send wrong message. The creature makes a good point, Commander Thex Lin admitted. This needs to be clearly a humanitarian and diplomatic mission, not a military operation. Over the next 18 hours, the station buzzed with activity. The Type 7 medical transport, Healing Wing, was modified for extended flight, its life support systems upgraded to handle both human and Xerian biology. Dr. Vextar prepared a portable medical bay that could fit in the transport's cargo area. Sarah spent the time learning everything she could about Xerian physiology and culture. To her surprise, Sky touched by stars was an eager teacher, sharing information that had never been available to galactic medicine before. My people are not... Others think, Sky touched by stars explained as Sarah checked its wing mobility. We appear frightening, because our world is dangerous, but we value life above all else. Then, why has the war continued for so long? Sarah asked. Fear. Others attack. First, because they fear us. We defend ourselves. Cycle continues. No one tries to understand. Until now. Yes. Young leaders on both sides tired of war, willing to try peace. But old fears run deep. If talks fail, war will be worse than before. The weight of responsibility felt heavier every time Sky, touched by stars, explained the stakes. But Sarah also felt something else, hope. This was a chance to break a cycle of violence that had lasted for generations. On the morning of departure, a crowd gathered in the docking bay to see them off. Word had spread throughout the station about the mission, and the crew wanted to show their support. Sky, touched by stars, had to duck significantly to fit through the transport's cargo doors, but once inside, there was enough room for it to lie comfortably in the modified medical bay. The creature seemed nervous but determined. Ready for departure, Lieutenant Commander Okafor announced from the pilot's seat. All systems green. Dr. Chun, Commander Thexlin's voice came through the communicator. I want you to know that what you're doing today represents the best of what medical professionals can be. The whole station is proud of you. Similar messages came through from Dr. Vextar and the other medical staff. Even Commander Raxic wished them safe travels. As the transport pulled away from Zinthra Station, Sarah watched the massive structure shrink in the viewport. She had lived and worked there for 5 years, but this was her first time leaving it. The irony wasn't lost on her that her first deep space journey was to help an apex beast get to peace talks. Course laid in for Nexus Prime, Lieutenant Commander Okafor announced. Journey time, 3 days, 14 hours. All aboard. Please secure for hyperjump. The next few seconds were disorienting as the transport shifted into hyperspace. Sarah's stomach lurched, and she was grateful for the anti-nausea medication Dr. Vextar had insisted she take. Sky, touched by stars, handled the transition much better, merely closing its eyes and breathing deeply until the ship stabilized. How are you feeling? Sarah asked once they were cruising smoothly through hyperspace. Strange, came the translated reply. I have never traveled with others of my kind, but I feel safe. The journey proceeded smoothly for the first day. Sarah monitored Sky, touched by stars' healing progress, and was pleased to see that the stress of travel wasn't impacting its recovery. If anything, knowing it was heading toward the peace talks seemed to be helping. But on the second day, they ran into trouble. We're being hailed by a Centaurian patrol ship, Lieutenant Commander Okafor announced. They're demanding we stop for inspection. Sarah's heart raced. Can we outrun them? Not in this ship. Medical transports aren't built for speed. Okafor was quiet for a moment, listening to her headset. They're ordering us to prepare for boarding. I think someone may have reported our passenger. Sky, touched by stars, had gone very still. If they find me, they will assume I am prisoner or weapon. They will not believe truth. What do we do? Sarah asked. Lieutenant Commander Okafor smiled grimly. We tell the truth and hope they're reasonable, but get ready to transmit those diplomatic codes. The next hour was the longest of Sarah's life. The Centaurian patrol ship Swift Justice docked with their transport, and armed soldiers boarded for inspection. Their leader, Captain Valak, was a veteran officer whose career had been built on fighting the Xerian border wars. When he saw Sky, touched by stars, his reaction was immediate and hostile. Stand away from that creature immediately, he ordered, drawing his weapon. How did an apex beast get aboard a civilian transport? Captain Valak, Lieutenant Commander Okafor said calmly. This being is traveling under diplomatic immunity to peace negotiations at Nexus Prime. Impossible. Apex beasts don't negotiate. They kill. Sky, touched by stars, spoke up, its words coming through the translator clearly. Captain, I am Sky, touched by stars, diplomatic envoy of Xerian Council. I carry immunity codes 7, Alpha, Prime. Captain Valak looked stunned. He consulted his scanner, verifying the codes. His expression grew increasingly confused as the verification came through positive. "These codes are authentic," he admitted reluctantly. "But how do I know you're not a prisoner being forced to say this?" Sarah stepped forward. "Captain, I'm Dr. Sarah Chun, the being's attending physician. I've been treating Sky Touched by Stars for injuries sustained when its diplomatic ship was damaged. We're taking it to Nexus Prime so it can fulfill its diplomatic mission." "You're treating it voluntarily?" "Of course. Sky Touched by Stars is a patient and a person, not a monster." Captain Valak studied the scene carefully. Sky Touched by Stars lay calmly in the medical bay, making no threatening moves. Its injuries were clearly visible, as was the care Sarah had provided. "In 30 years of military service," Captain Valak said slowly, "I've never seen an apex beast that didn't try to attack everyone around it." "Maybe," Sarah suggested gently, "that's because they were always being attacked first." Sky Touched by Stars spoke again. "Captain, your people and mine have fought long enough. Peace talks offer chance to end suffering for all. Please let us continue." Captain Valak holstered his weapon. "I'm going to escort you to Nexus Prime personally. If these peace talks are real, if there's a chance to end this war." He paused, looking older than his years. "I've lost too many good people to this conflict. If there's hope for peace, I want to see it succeed." The final day of the journey passed with the Centaurian patrol ship flying alongside them. Captain Valak had opened a communication channel, and Sarah was amazed to listen to him and Sky Touched by Stars sharing stories of the war from both sides. When Nexus Prime appeared on their screens, Sarah felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. They had made it, but now came the real test. The diplomatic station was a marvel of engineering, a massive ring-shaped structure that rotated slowly to provide artificial gravity. Ships from dozens of worlds were docked at its outer rim, representing every major power in the sector. Nexus Prime Control, this is Medical Transport Healing Wing requesting priority diplomatic docking. Lieutenant Commander Okafor transmitted. Healing Wing, you're cleared for diplomatic docking Bay 7. Medical teams are standing by. As they docked, Sarah could see through the viewports that word of their arrival had spread. Diplomats and officials from multiple species had gathered to witness the arrival of the first Xerian representative to attend peace talks in over 2 centuries. Sky Touched by Stars was clearly nervous as they prepared to disembark. "Dr. Chun, I am grateful beyond words. You risked everything to help someone you have been taught to fear." "I just did what any doctor should do," Sarah replied. "I helped someone who needed help." "No, you did more. You saw a person where others saw a monster. You gave chance for peace." The airlock opened, and Sky Touched by Stars stepped onto the station. The gathered diplomats fell silent, many of them seeing an apex beast up close for the first time. Then, Sky Touched by Stars did something that surprised everyone. It bowed deeply to Sarah, a gesture of profound respect that was unmistakable across all cultures. "Dr. Sarah Chun," it said, its translated words carrying across the silent docking bay. "You are healer, not just of body but of hate. My people will remember your kindness for generations." As Sky Touched by Stars walked toward the diplomatic chambers, Sarah felt a sense of accomplishment unlike anything she had ever experienced. She didn't know if the peace talks would succeed, but she knew she had given them their best possible chance. Lieutenant Commander Okafor put a hand on her shoulder. "Ready to head home, Doc?" Sarah watched as Sky Touched by Stars disappeared into the station, surrounded by diplomats and mediators who were finally willing to listen rather than fight. "Yeah," she said softly. "Let's go home." 6 months later, Sarah received a message through diplomatic channels. The peace talks had succeeded. The Xerian border wars were officially over. Sky Touched by Stars had been appointed as the first Xerian ambassador to the Galactic Council. And enclosed with the message was a small cutting from a purple flowering vine, the same type Sky Touched by Stars had recognized in the botanical garden. The note was simple. "For the doctor who teaches us that healing comes in many forms. May this remind you that kindness grows wherever it is planted." Sarah planted the cutting in her quarters and watched it grow, a living symbol of how understanding could bloom even in the most unlikely places. Every time she looked at it, she remembered that sometimes the most important medicine wasn't something you could prescribe or inject. Sometimes it was simply the willingness to see the person behind the fear.